Mental illness could sound a little scary, and there are varying degrees of mental illness. And oftentimes it takes a multi-pronged approach to help someone who has a problem. We're going to talk about an interesting way to do that today. Becca Atkins is here from Artreach. She's going to tell us how they're using the arts as a helping tool for those people who have mental illness. I'm Ann Carrick. We'll be right back on For the Record. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Ann Carrick. Our guest today is Becca Atkins, and she's here from Artreach. And we're going to find out exactly what Artreach is. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you here. Now, Artreach, I guess, has some things going on to help people who are maybe suffering from some sort of mental illness, temporary or otherwise. So tell us first, what is Artreach so people know?
Okay. Artreach is a nonprofit organization that provides social rehabilitation through arts programs and recreation to adults who have psychiatric disorders.
Okay.
And there are two programs under Artreach. One is called Work Hard, Play Hard. One's called Second Step Players.
Okay. So I was going to ask you what the key programs are, but those are them.
There you go.
Those two. So then let's tell us, about each one, and whichever one you want to start with, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to start with Work Hard, Play Hard because that's the other program, and then I can speak more to the Second Step Players.
Okay.
That's my program. Work Hard, Play Hard program is purely recreation, and its purpose is to take people who have psychiatric disorders on, outings in the community so that their lives are getting back to normal, so that they're being able to socialize with each other and do things that might normally be cost prohibitive as well. So they go to movies, they go to plays, ball games at the Mohegan Sun. They paint ceramics at Get Fired Up.
Are they still sort of the activities, are they still kind of in the entertainment arts field more
Many
so?
of them.
Or is that just coincidence though? I mean, could they just as likely take a boating trip?
Yes, they could just as likely take a boating trip or go to the beach.
Horseback riding, something.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, it depends on what anybody's interested in.
Okay.
The people in the program actually choose the activities that they want to go to, and they design the program themselves.
Okay, so it could be whatever activity sounds good to them.
Yes.
And it's sort of a chance for people to get together and just kind of do normal things without all of the worries that go along with it and putting it together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in a supportive group of people, I assume.
Yes, in a very supportive group of people.
And
it works well. It's a nice program.
It sounds like it's
6 days a week. They have activities 6 days a week, all year round.
Do you have to be mentally ill to go? Or?
Yes.
Oh, darn.
Because it's part of your social rehabilitation.
I was going to say, because otherwise you have people flocking to you.
Yeah.
Like, I'd like to sign up for that program.
Technically, it's for people who are receiving services from the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services.
Okay, so they're already in some other program where they don't get to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I can see a lot of people who'd be like, well, this sounds fun. 6 days a week, we go to some fun activity.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Right, right.
So that's one end of it.
Yes.
And you said it's 6 days a week. And does somebody have to be, I guess they have to be receiving services.
Yes.
But it doesn't matter like how long or if it's how severe, as long as they're able to
wide variety
participate.
of diagnoses. People just have to be, responsible enough in managing their symptoms well enough to not be disruptive to the group, and to to make sure they're being responsible and not leaving and not coming back.
Right.
So if they're responsible to the group, they can go on the activity.
Okay.
And that's the primary focus.
All right. And
so recovery.
So that one is pretty straightforward.
Yes.
It's just kind of get together and have some fun.
Right.
And be in a supportive environment. Now the other one, the Second Step Players, I know you're very involved with.
Yes.
So tell us about that one.
And there's more, we're definitely the more visible part of the agency. I don't want to say that we're the more effective part, because Work Hard, Play Hard is very effective as well, and it's much less visible, so it gets less attention.
Okay.
But Second Step Players is a theater troupe of people who have psychiatric disorders. And we are also a social rehabilitation program. We're funded by the Connecticut Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. And our rehearsal process is actually our product. So the social rehabilitation in the troupe happens during the rehearsals as people are isolating less, showing up when they said they were going to show up, and building connections with people.
So it's actually coming to the rehearsal, being responsible, interacting with the people, learning the lines, practicing, all those kinds of things.
Right.
And then the performance is just sort of a nice byproduct.
The performance is a nice byproduct, and it is a nice byproduct. We're also very proud of the product that we have. It's a good thing to have a good product, and people are proud of it. So,
right.
You know.
Does the performance actually end up helping to raise money for the program? Like, do you sell tickets to it and that money goes back into the program? Or
Yeah, I would love to say that we made money on the show, but really what happens with the money is that it's a nonprofit, so it goes right back into the agency, and it does, we try to at least break even on ticket sales, but you know, it does cost to produce the show. Sure. And our funding, of course, helps that.
Right.
A lot.
So what do the people who participate in the Second Step Players, I mean, what do they get out of it? I mean, can you tell us a little bit, like, you know, how it affects them?
They get a lot out of it, and it really depends on what issue they're bringing in. Let me see. I'm gonna do the easiest way I know how. I'll tell you what I got when I came in, because I came into the program as a volunteer, and soon afterwards was diagnosed with agoraphobia, which is basically fear of going outside anywhere.
But obviously not to such an extent that you were locked in your own home.
Well, it was pretty bad. It was actually pretty bad at the time, and I credit the program for a large part of my healing. I really wanted to connect with the people in the program. They asked me to come in and do a piece of choreography, and I did that. I knew how to do that. I'd been a dance major, so I, stepped through my anxiety and did it, and discovered through working with the group of people that there was a more accepting feel to the group. People were not angry at each other if somebody blew a line. They were very respectful of each other's boundaries, something I wasn't used to from people around me. Right. And they treated each other really well. So I was drawn to the group and started volunteering to go on tour. And of course, the first tour we went on to, I was the person with my back up against the wall having an anxiety attack, not the people who had schizophrenia and manic depression, who were fine. Right. So I had to look at that. Right, coming in as a volunteer really helped me take the step to get help without the stigma. And the stigma is a really big component of Second Step Players, and how it works is reducing the stigma. So I reduced my internal stigma enough so that I could go get help. And I can't believe the difference between where I was then and where I am now. Right. Unbelievable.
Now, did you know before that you didn't like going out? I mean, did you at least have that kind of a sense that,
I didn't know that there was help for it. I thought that there was something really wrong with me. I came to understand that there was something going on with me that's different than having something really wrong with you, and that there were things you could do about it. Right. So that was, it saved my life, to tell you the truth. It really did. Okay. So people get very different things. Sure. But that's what I got.
Right. Now, since it's a theater group, and theater's often, associated with the prima donna syndrome.
Oh, gosh.
do you still get some of that, even though the group is more accepting and all those kinds of things?
How do I want to say that? Not for long. If somebody comes in with that point of view, it doesn't last for long.
Right. So the group doesn't put up with it, whereas like a regular theater group might tolerate that a little bit.
Yeah, it's not even not putting up with it. It just kind of disappears, because when we're working on a project like this and with people with a wide variety of diagnoses who have a very wide level of skill in what they bring, it shifts. It's not about the product. So you don't have to be good, you don't have to be the star. There is no star. Right. Sometimes the bit players, the walk-ons, wind up stealing the show. That is often the case. Okay. And it becomes this thing where you're working together on a common goal instead of trying to, be the top dog. So you have this common goal and you all work together. And it just makes that diva syndrome go away.
Okay. I was just curious because theater has such the diva image,
Yeah, I think that's why sometimes community theater people are drawn into the troupe because it is so different. Okay. And that aspect is really nice.
Okay, and tell us how the coffee house plays into that, because we only have about a minute before we go to a break, but how the coffee house is, go ahead.
All right, so the coffee house is a program that we do in the winter between January and May. We just had our performance, and that's for people who want to be singers or musicians instead of actors. We have 2 bands with local professional musicians who volunteer, and everybody who participates picks a song, and we work it up with the band and with backup singers, rehearse all winter long. And then we do a big coffee house bash. 27 vocalists this year.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. We'll talk more about it. We'll be right back on For the Record. I'm Ann Carrick. We're talking to Becca Atkins about how Artreach is helping people with mental illness. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Ann Carrick. Our guest today is Becca Atkins from Artreach, and we're talking about some programs that they have that help people with mental illness. Now, we talked about 3 different ones, so let's have you just put them all in perspective before we move on. And that was the Coffee House, the Second Step Players, and the Work Hard, Play Hard. Well, actually, because they have events during the year, correct?
Yeah, actually, the Coffee House is part of Second Step Players.
Oh, okay.
So let me describe to you Second Step Players and what that chunk looks like. In the Second Step Players, we do theater and music projects. And the way that it works is that what we're working on now, for instance, is the Eugene O'Neill show that we will perform in the fall. And we spend all summer rehearsing original comedy that we wrote among the group that is about mental health topics, educational comedy about the mental health system. So all summer we rehearse that a couple nights a week. And then we'll do a 3-night run at the Eugene O'Neill, and that's August 25th, 26th, and 27th this year. And then what we'll do is take that show and shift it so that only about 10 people are in it. We'll, you know, composite some of the roles because there are like 35 people in the O'Neill show. And then we have a smaller group that tours to places like conferences, to colleges that are training mental health providers, groups of psychiatrists, different places that we go and do this touring show with the educational comedy. And then that's what we do during the winter.
Do they tour sort of anybody who wants them if they can help fund it?
Yes,
you're willing
people
to go,
hire us to go. If we go out of the area, we're not really funded to tour. We're funded for the social rehab program that happens at home.
But
people can hire us and we'll travel.
And that's what I meant. If they fund the expense of you getting there, you're willing to go.
Absolutely. And it's really good. That has its own healing component when you're taking people, you know, way out of state and spending 3 or 4 nights in a hotel. There's all kinds of learning that happens for people who don't usually get to travel. So that happens, and then during the spring we do the Coffee House that I was mentioning before. So we shift from theater to music in the winter. And we work on a music project. I
was picturing the Coffee House like open mic, but it's really not because these people have signed up and prepared and
absolutely.
And
it's a weekly rehearsal process, and you know that you have to show up. You miss 2 rehearsals, you don't get to be in the show.
Yeah, it's just more of a it's more of a stage stand-up singing than theater.
Exactly,
is the only difference.
Right.
Okay. So we talked about how it helps, but do these programs really benefit people with all types of mental illness, right? Whether it's chronic or temporary. Anxiety, schizophrenia, whatever. I mean, pretty much across the board?
Yeah, it really does. It can help no matter what's going on. And I want to throw the word recovery in the pot when we're talking about this. Because
recovery's a good thing.
Yeah, the state of Connecticut is so cool right now. They've come on board with understanding that people can actually recover from mental illness. And that looks like a different thing to everybody. It doesn't mean that your symptoms go away necessarily. For some people it does. Some people can get complete symptom-free recovery. It depends on what the diagnosis is and the source of the problem. But even somebody who has a very serious psychiatric disorder can improve the quality of their life and create a life that has meaning, and that's the focus now. And theater and music can support that process.
Right.
So that's kind of how it's working across the board with any kind of diagnosis.
Right. And I would assume that the goal for anybody, no matter what the illness, is that they can live what people consider to be a normal, productive life, you know, like do the things that they want to do, work, you know, have a
life, a life worth meaning, a life that has meaning.
That's where they're not focusing on their illness, they're focusing on life, and they happen to have this other illness in the background, and they just deal with it.
Right, you're a person first, and then you have this set of symptoms. And that's new, you know, that's not how it used to be, that you were diagnosed and that was your entire identity. So
you were now sick forever.
So now we have people who identify first as actors or singers who have a psychiatric diagnosis.
Right.
So we try to shift the identity component, and that is difficult. People were trained to identify with their diagnosis for so many years. And at the time it was thought that that was helpful. You know, you have to accept that you have this, and it was a point of view, certainly, but it wasn't working well.
Right.
So separating the person's identity from their diagnosis is really important and is helping people recover.
Has it helped that people, like high-profile, famous people, whatever, have come forward and said, you know, oh, I have bipolar, or I have serious depression, or, in other words, you know, people that others look up to?
Thank you, Jane Pauley. You know, yes, she talked about having manic depression recently.
Patty Duke. You know, there's And there's now a whole bunch of people who are new mothers who are talking about severe postpartum depression. Right.
Yeah.
In other words, but I think that probably always helps when you see people that everybody else looks up to them and thinks that they have these wonderful lives and everything about them is perfect, which of course, as we talked about, everybody has their own little quirks and neuroses.
Oh yeah, everybody.
Everybody.
The undiagnosed are terrifying.
Yeah, the people, well.
I joke when I say
or do you
that,
worry more about the people who think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with them? Those
I worry
who are
very
really,
much
really
about
sick.
those people. I worry very much about those people.
Okay. You know, and you would know, since you are now, you're trained as a psychotherapist
as well, yeah.
It's not really related to what you do with Artreach, but you know.
It doesn't hurt, but you know, it's just a side
That's
thing.
right. So it's the undiagnosed and those who, you know, claim there's nothing wrong with them. The people who think they're crazy are fine. Absolutely.
Because they're working on it. You know, it's like you've got your cards on the table and you know what you're dealing with.
That's right. Well, isn't that like the joke they used to say, the first step is admitting you have a problem?
It's true.
So if we all admit that we're a little crazy.
And then the second step, like our name, the second step, in an alcohol recovery program is came to believe that a power higher than myself could restore me to sanity.
Oh,
and so we think of the theater and the program as something that supports you.
And that's where the name came from.
Actually, it's not, but we like it.
But I like it.
You know, as a side thing, we liked where it came from.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about funding, because obviously all these things take money.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
some of the money comes through the government programs, but you probably also have either grants and fundraisers, volunteer, you know, all sorts of things. So tell us how you're funded, how you make this thing work.
Our primary source of funding is the State of Connecticut Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services that provides the funding for the social rehabilitation of our part of our program. And then we also write for community grants to local foundations. And of course, when we do projects, we try to at least break even, as I said, by selling tickets. We have some product that we're starting to sell, CDs, projects that we've recorded with people.
What's the name of that CD? I read about it and I don't remember now the name. Do you know?
History in the Making. I had to think for a second. Because
sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
One of the players wrote 2 rap songs, and a local recording engineer named Ira Sokolsky volunteered to give studio time so that we could produce that CD.
All right. And so now I know that you talk a lot about volunteers. Your actual staff, like the true staff, is very small.
So what does it look like? Yes.
I mean, do you have a paid staff?
We do. It's my full-time job.
Okay.
We have the executive director of the agency, who also is full-time with Second Step Players. I mean, that's really what she does. And then we have a director for Work Hard, Play Hard. And we have a program assistant who drives the van a lot and does a lot of the entering the statistics that we have to enter to the state to support why our program is working.
So you basically have 4 paid staff, and the rest are volunteers?
Well, we have a couple other paid staff, and those are the drivers for the Work Hard, Play Hard program, who actually run the events.
Oh, okay. So it's still a small staff for the amount of activities and the productions and all these other things. So you have a lot of volunteers. A lot of volunteer stuff happening there.
A lot.
Okay.
A lot of volunteer stuff happening.
Okay. And are there other programs like this in other parts of the country that you know of?
There are a few. There's nothing that's exactly like us. There are some other theater troupes that have people with psychiatric disorders. There are actually a couple more in Connecticut. There's the Free at Last Players down in Middletown. And the guy who started that first came and worked with Second Step Players and took what he learned there, and plus his past experience, and started a program in Middletown.
Sort of duplicate.
Yeah, well, sort of. But their focus is not social rehab so much as theater.
Oh, okay.
So their product is more of their focus, and our process is more of our focus.
Right.
So everybody takes it and does something different. But I did last year do a consulting job down in Shelby, North Carolina. Oddly, the home of my family, which is a coincidence that it was someone from there who asked me to come and start a theater troupe like ours. And I went into a mental health clubhouse, spent a week with them, and worked with them about writing and about how to produce events and acting skills.
Okay. So are you all open if people are interested in kind of duplicating a program like yours to call and talk to you to an extent? I know you're all busy.
Right,
but
yeah.
Or is there somewhere else they can go?
There's not really anywhere else that I know that they could go. They can certainly call and talk to me about it. It is time prohibitive.
Right.
I have worked as an independent consultant. I'm available for hire as an
Right,
independent
okay.
consultant to
Fair
do
enough.
that. On the side, yet my time is really limited.
Okay.
We'd love it. If we had time to do everything we wanted to do, we would do that all over the country. But it's, you know, really our focus is on working with the people in
Helping
our
the
program,
people.
and you just have to keep your eye on that.
Okay.
It's so easy to get drawn away by how popular the product is.
Right.
And our, you know, we're constantly coming back to what our focus is, which is the social rehabilitation in the program.
Okay. We're actually out of time.
Okay.
But thank you. We'll be right back on For the Record to give you some more information about contact information, how you can find out more, or maybe even find a program in your area. I'm Ann Carrick. This is For the Record. We'll be right back. Thanks for being with us on For the Record. If you'd like to find out more about Artreach, you can reach them by mail. Artreach Inc., 401 West Thames Street, number 702, Norwich, Connecticut, 06360, or by phone, 860-887-0014. They also have a website, which is artreachheals.org. And you can reach our guest, Becca Atkins, at becca@artreachheals.org. You can always contact me by email, anncarrick@pax.net. I'll be happy to share the same information with you. Thanks again to our guest, Becca, for being here and giving us some more insight as to another way to help those with mental illness through art and entertainment. I'm Ann Carrick. We'll see you next time on For the Record.